I knew being the maid of honor would bring emotions, but I never expected betrayal to be one of them. What would you do if your parents gave your sister a priceless gift that was secretly stolen from you, then smiled like it never belonged to you in the first place? I didn't plan for what came next, I just tried to do what felt right. I'm Ava, 29, and standing next to my sister as her maid of honor should have been the happiest day of my life. The vineyard where she got married shimmered with fairy lights strung through olive trees, the late afternoon sun turning everything gold and honeyed. She looked radiant, ethereal even, in our grandmother's lace veil, and for the first time in years, it felt like our whole family was in harmony. If you're watching this, please comment where you're tuning in from. And hit like. Because what I'm about to share? It's a wedding story you'll never forget. The ceremony was beautiful, intimate. I held her bouquet when she slipped the ring on Ethan's finger. When she whispered, "I do," I actually teared up. And I don't cry. Ever. Everyone clapped and cheered, the kind of applause that spills over into laughter. We walked back down the aisle arm in arm, our heels sinking slightly into the grass, and for a moment it was like we were kids again. Just the two of us, playing dress-up, imagining our fairy tale futures. My parents were beaming, holding hands. Mom had on that pale pink dress she'd picked out 6 months ago, the one she swore she'd lose 10 pounds for. Dad was dabbing at his eyes with a cloth napkin, trying not to let anyone see. I've never seen him cry at anything, except maybe the end of Field of Dreams. We all posed for photos in front of the rose arch. The photographer made us do silly ones too. Dad lifting us both like we were toddlers again, Mom laughing so hard her mascara smudged. I kept thinking, this is how it should be. This was what I always wanted, a family moment unmarred by secrets or snide remarks. And for once, it seemed like no one was hiding anything. But that's the thing about perfect moments. They're fragile. And sometimes, they only feel perfect because you haven't seen the crack in the glass yet. During the cocktail hour, I gave my speech. I talked about how my sister used to write Ethan's name in the margins of her notebooks, about the time she dragged me out of bed at 2 a.m. to help her rehearse how she'd tell him she loved him. I ended with a toast. "To forever," I said, and she mouthed, "I love you," across the crowd. My heart could have burst. And then came the presentation. It was the end of dinner. The string quartet played something soft while waiters served dessert. My parents stood up together, clinking their glasses. The room hushed. My dad reached into a small velvet box and held up something that sparkled under the tent lights. "We want to give our daughter something special," he said. "A family heirloom that represents love, legacy, and the strength of the women in our family." Everyone applauded. And I smiled. Until I saw what he was holding. The applause hadn't even died down before my mother stepped forward, her hands clasped just so, ever the picture of poised sentimentality. Dad held up the necklace like it was the Holy Grail, a delicate gold chain with a pendant that shimmered like something pulled straight from a storybook. The crowd leaned in. Cameras flashed. Even the officiant looked emotional. Mom's voice trembled as she began her little speech. "This necklace has been in our family for generations. My grandmother wore it on her wedding day. I wore it on mine. And now, it belongs to our beautiful daughter." The guests let out this collective, "Aw," and my sister brought her hands to her mouth like she couldn't believe it. Her eyes were wide, glassy, the kind of reaction you dream about when you're being handed a piece of family history. I clapped, of course. What else was I supposed to do? It's what you do at weddings. You clap, you smile, you play your role. But my palms were clammy, my heart thudding a little too hard. I leaned forward for a better look. Dad fastened the necklace around her neck, his fingers fumbling slightly from emotion. Or maybe champagne. The pendant fell perfectly above the sweetheart neckline of her dress, and everyone gasped like it had been made for her. Except it wasn't. Made for her. Because the moment the pendant caught the light, I felt something lurch inside my chest. Not recognition, something deeper. Like my body knew before my brain did. Like every cell in me screamed before the thought fully formed. No. It couldn't be. But it was. I knew that necklace. I knew it like I knew the sound of my sister's laugh or the way my grandmother used to braid my hair. I'd felt it between my fingers hundreds of times, tracing the grooves on its surface while daydreaming about my own wedding. It wasn't just similar. It was the necklace. Mine. The one Grandma gave me when I was 15. The one she'd taken off her own neck, pressed into my palm, and whispered, "This is for your forever." And now it was on my sister's neck, being passed off as some communal family heirloom. I blinked hard, swallowed, looked around. Everyone was still clapping, laughing, dabbing at their eyes. My sister reached up, fingers trembling, and touched the pendant like it was made of magic. "Thank you," she whispered. "This is the most beautiful gift I've ever received." And my parents? They just smiled. Like this was how it was always meant to be. Like the necklace had never belonged to anyone else. Like I was never even in the picture. At first, I thought maybe I was wrong. Maybe it just looked like mine. Similar design, similar glow. But then the pendant tilted as my sister leaned in to hug our mom, and the tiny engraving on the back caught the light. One word. Always. My grandmother's handwriting, etched in delicate cursive. I remembered the day she gave it to me, how she'd traced that word with her finger and said, "For your always, for your future." My blood turned cold. There wasn't a second necklace. There couldn't be. Grandma had only ever worn that one. I'd kept it in the velvet-lined box she gave me, tucked safely in the top drawer of my jewelry case. Until 2 years ago, when it vanished. I'd torn my room apart. Every drawer, every crevice, emptied and searched again and again. I'd cried for hours, convinced I'd lost it, punished myself for not locking it up somewhere safer. And eventually, after months without answers, I let it go. Told myself maybe I'd just misplaced it. Maybe it got knocked into the trash during one of those rushed cleanups. A stupid mistake I never forgave myself for. But it wasn't a mistake. It had been taken. Stolen. By someone who knew exactly what it meant to me. I stared at my parents. At the easy way they smiled, the rehearsed delivery of that speech. Not a flicker of hesitation, not even a glance in my direction. Just pride. As if giving away something so personal, so sacred, was an act of pure generosity. My sister touched the pendant again and whispered something to Ethan. He kissed her cheek, grinning. The photographer caught the moment, immortalizing it. A perfect gift, a perfect bride, a perfect lie. And I just stood there, frozen. Not quite breathing. Not quite real. Because this wasn't just about a necklace. It was about being erased. Being rewritten. And as the laughter swelled again, rising around me like smoke, I realized something I hadn't let myself believe before. This wasn't an accident. They knew. They all knew. Everything moved, but I didn't. Champagne flutes clinked, plates were cleared. Someone cued the first dance playlist. But I stood there, smiling like I was still part of it, even as something inside me broke clean in half. The world didn't slow down. I did. I watched through a thick, invisible pane, like one of those museum exhibits where you're meant to observe but never touch. The kind where people walk by and never notice you're trapped on the other side. My sister twirled, laughing in Ethan's arms. The necklace shimmered with each turn, catching the light just enough to mock me. A flash of gold, a flicker of memory, and all I could do was stare. A guest nudged my shoulder. "You look like you're about to cry. You must be so proud." I nodded. Or at least I think I did. My body was on autopilot, muscle memory holding up the facade while my mind went dark. The rest of the table carried on like nothing had happened, like my identity hadn't just been sliced open with a smile. My parents sat 2 tables over, still glowing from their moment. My mom held court with some distant cousins, retelling the heirloom story like it was folklore. My dad leaned back, arm draped casually over the chair, pride radiating off him like heat. Neither of them looked at me. Not once. And that was the worst part. Not the necklace. Not even the theft. The fact that they could do this, with a smile, in public, in front of everyone, and not even glance my way. Like I wasn't there. Like I never mattered enough to even lie to directly. I raised my champagne flute and took a sip that turned into a gulp. The bubbles burned on the way down. Someone made a toast, and I clinked glasses automatically, laughter catching in my throat like a fishbone. It should have been a perfect night. It should have been about love and joy and new beginnings. But all I could think was, what else did they take from me? And when did I become so easy to forget? It was the engraving that did it. One word. Always. And just like that, the dam broke. The memory came rushing in, vivid and warm and so cruel in its contrast to the cold I felt now. I was 15, sitting cross-legged on the carpet in Grandma's living room, sunlight pouring in through lace curtains. Her fingers were thin and soft as she unclasped the necklace from her neck. I remember her leaning in close, her perfume, violets, and old wood, and pressing the pendant into my hand. "Not yet," she said, her voice soft but steady. "Not until you find the one who sees you fully. All of you. Then, and only then, you wear this." I remember laughing. "That could be never." She smiled. "Then it waits. And that's okay. Because some things, some people, are worth the wait." I must have looked confused because she brushed the hair from my face and added, "This is for your always, Ava. Not anyone else's." I'd kept it in the little velvet box she gave me, top drawer of my dresser, under the old birthday cards and the photo strip of me and my best friend from the county fair. It became part of my mental inventory. Check the necklace. Check the keys. Check the charger. Like it anchored me somehow. And then one day, it was gone. At first, I thought I'd moved it. Or misplaced it. But as the hours stretched into days and it still didn't turn up, something in me started to sink. I remember calling Mom, panic rising in my throat, asking if she'd seen it. "You probably just lost it," she said. "Things like that get misplaced all the time." I wanted to believe her. I tried to believe her. But it felt wrong, like something had been taken, not misplaced. Now, standing here watching my sister sway on the dance floor wearing my necklace, my story, I finally knew the truth. They hadn't forgotten. They'd chosen. And suddenly, every awkward birthday, every last-minute cancellation, every quiet moment when I'd felt like I didn't quite belong, it all made sense. I was never the daughter who fit. I was just the one who got the necklace too early, too privately, too quietly to be remembered when it really mattered. I smiled through teeth that ached from holding it all in. Applause broke out as the newlyweds finished their first dance, and I clapped along, fingers trembling just enough to notice if you were looking closely. No one was. The DJ transitioned into something upbeat and cheesy. "Build Me Up, Buttercup," maybe. And suddenly the floor was swarming with cousins and coworkers, twirling, stumbling, shrieking with laughter. And there I was, still in the front row, still frozen inside my own body, clapping like nothing had just shattered. No one noticed the tear that escaped before I could blink it away. Not Mom, busy adjusting the dessert table. Not Dad, laughing with the groom's uncle. And definitely not my sister, whose face was flushed with joy and champagne, the pendant rising and falling with each breath like it belonged there. I told myself I was being dramatic, that it was just a necklace. But it wasn't. It was the message behind it. The quiet theft of something sacred. The reshaping of my story into hers. I'd lived for years with that necklace as a private promise, a secret anchor. When Grandma died, it was the only thing I couldn't bring myself to wear. Not yet. Not until it was time. But someone else had decided for me. Someone had opened my drawer, taken the box, and rewritten the ending. I forced another sip of champagne. A hug here, a laugh there. I even took a photo with the bridal party, flashing my teeth like everything was perfect. The camera captured a version of me I didn't recognize. Inside, I was screaming. Did they think I wouldn't remember? That I wouldn't notice? Or did they think I would? And that I just wouldn't say anything? That I'd be the good daughter, the reliable one, the one who always lets things go? A server offered me another glass. I took it. My fingertips were numb now, which made it easier to smile. I blended back into the crowd. I congratulated. I clinked glasses. I cheered when the cake was cut. But I never took my eyes off that necklace. It glittered like betrayal. And I wondered, not for the first time, if they had ever truly seen me at all. The reception ended in a flurry of clinking glasses. Hugs laced with too much perfume and glitter confetti that stuck to everything. I helped gather gift envelopes, posed for 100 blurry selfies, and even gave a toast when the MOH spotlight swung back to me. It was warm and sweet and entirely fake. By the time the venue started clearing out, I was running on autopilot. My cheeks ached from smiling. My hands were raw from clapping. But the moment the last guest drifted out to the shuttle, I moved. I found them outside, near the catering tent. My parents, standing together, arms crossed like they were already dissecting the night. Dad held a cocktail napkin smeared with chocolate ganache. Mom was rubbing at a faint lipstick stain on her wineglass. They didn't see me at first. "Where did you get the necklace?" I asked, my voice level. Almost too quiet. My mom turned slowly. "What necklace?" I tilted my head toward the ballroom, where my sister was taking last-minute photos with Ethan's groomsmen. "The one you gave her." "The family heirloom." Dad shifted his weight. "Why do you ask?" "Because it was mine," I said, the words sharp and sudden. "Grandma gave it to me, on my 15th birthday, with a note and everything. It disappeared 2 years ago." My mother blinked. Once, slowly. "You're mistaken," she said, like she was correcting a child. "That necklace was always meant for your sister's wedding." I took a step closer. "It was in my room. In my box. For years. You knew that." She folded her arms. "It was never meant to be permanent, Ava. Grandma may have loaned it to you, but she told us it was for the next bride in the family. It's tradition." I laughed, low and bitter. "That's funny because Grandma told me it was mine." She said, "For when you find the one who sees you fully. Not until your sister gets married first." Dad rubbed the back of his neck. "Let's not do this tonight, okay? It was a beautiful day. Don't turn it into something else." "I'm not turning it into anything," I snapped. "You did that when you stole from me. When you stood up there and acted like it had always belonged to her." Mom's jaw tightened. "It was saved for the wedding. That's what we decided. We. Not Grandma. Not me. Them. The ones who made the decision behind my back, rewrote my story, and expected me to clap through it." I stared at them. This couple who raised me, who always made me feel like a guest in my own house, and something settled in my chest. Cold. Final. "Thanks for clearing that up," I said. Then I turned and walked away before they could speak again. Back at the guest house, I closed the door behind me and let silence wrap around my shoulders like a blanket soaked in ice. I didn't turn on the lights. I didn't take off the dress. I walked straight to the mirror over the vanity and stared. Mascara smudged beneath my eyes. Lipstick faded. My curls had wilted under the weight of the night. But that wasn't the part that broke me. It was the expression. Flat. Vacant. Like someone who had been slowly erased, line by line, until only a polite outline remained. I touched the mirror, fingertips trembling. "What happened to you?" I whispered, not expecting an answer. But the reflection whispered back anyway. "You let them do this. You let yourself be small for their comfort. You gave and gave and gave. And when they took the last thing you'd kept for yourself, you still smiled through it." I sank onto the edge of the bed, the satin fabric of my maid of honor dress pooling around me like a costume I couldn't wait to rip off. My throat ached with words I hadn't said, the truth I'd bitten down so hard it left a scar. "They didn't forget about you, Ava. They dismissed you. And worse, they expected you to let it happen." The tears came suddenly, fiercely, like they'd been stacking up behind my ribs for years. Not just for the necklace. For every missed birthday. Every moment Mom turned her warmth toward my sister and left me in the cold. For every time Dad nodded along like silence was neutrality. I thought about Grandma again. How her eyes had crinkled when she said, "This is for your forever." And now, they'd twisted that into someone else's legacy. I stood, wiped my face with the back of my hand, and walked to the drawer of the nightstand where I'd stashed the envelope Grandma gave me that same birthday. Still sealed. Still unopened. I'd kept it closed all these years, saving it for when the time felt right. Tonight felt wrong in every possible way, which is why I opened it. The paper was old, her handwriting delicate and slanted, but her words struck like lightning. "Ava, when you wear this, it's not about marriage. It's about knowing who you are. Don't wait for someone else to see it. See it first." I read it twice, 3 times. Then I folded it carefully, placed it back inside, and exhaled. They took the necklace. But they didn't get this. And they never would. I looked back at the mirror and didn't see emptiness anymore. I saw someone waking up. And I knew, with a certainty I hadn't felt in years, that I wasn't going to let this end quietly. I didn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling fan turning lazily above me, replaying every moment from the reception, every glance, every smile, every lie. By morning, my throat was raw from silence. I needed to talk to someone who didn't look at me like I was a problem to manage. Someone who didn't carry that same polite, calculated family mask. So I called Brielle, my cousin on mom's side. The one who always wore black to family events like it was armor, who once brought a girlfriend to Thanksgiving dinner just to watch my mother squirm. The one who never played along. She picked up on the third ring. "Please tell me you're okay and someone didn't actually die at this wedding," she said instead of hello. "No one died," I said, my voice thick. "But something definitely got buried." There was a pause, and then, "I'm on my way. Give me 20 minutes." She didn't ask questions. Didn't need context. That's what I loved about Brielle. She always knew when a fire was already burning and when it just needed someone to throw open a window and let the smoke out. When she arrived, she didn't knock. Just walked in with 2 iced coffees and a look on her face that said, "Tell me who needs to bleed." "I take it this isn't about the chicken being dry," she said, handing me a cup. I sat across from her, hands still shaking a little. "They gave her the necklace." "Who's they?" "Gave who what?" "My parents. Gave my sister my necklace, Grandma's, the one she gave me when I was 15. Brielle blinked. "The one that disappeared?" I nodded. She sat back, her mouth tightening into a line. "And they just acted like it was some family heirloom to pass down to the bride?" "Yep. In front of everyone. With a speech and everything." "Jesus," she muttered. "Did they actually forget it was yours? Or—" "No," I asked them. "They said it was always meant for the next bride, that Grandma only loaned it to me." "That's bulls," Brielle snapped. "You wore that thing to my high school graduation, remember? You were scared it would snag on your dress. You treated it like it was glass." I smiled faintly. "I remember." She leaned forward, eyes sharp now. "You need to say something. This isn't one of those let it go for the sake of peace situations. This is theft. And emotional manipulation." "I know. But I don't want to ruin her honeymoon with drama." Brielle raised an eyebrow. "And what about you, Ava? They already ruined something for you. Again. When are you allowed to matter?" The words hit like a slap. Because they were true. I'd spent years minimizing my pain so everyone else could stay comfortable. I was always the one who smoothed things over, kept the peace, smiled through it. But not this time. Not over this. "I'm going to talk to her," I said. "My sister. Before the honeymoon. I need to know if she even knows." Brielle nodded. "Good. And if she gives you any crap, I'll slash her tires." I laughed. Really laughed. For the first time in days. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel alone. I waited until the brunch crowd died down and cornered her just outside the hotel elevator, where the only witnesses were a ficus plant and a concierge too polite to eavesdrop. She looked surprised to see me. "Hey, you disappeared last night," she said, adjusting the strap of her overnight bag. The pendant glinted at her throat, catching the morning light like it had a sense of humor. I tried not to stare. "Can we talk? Just us?" Her smile faded, replaced by that familiar little furrow between her brows, the one that always came right before she sensed something was off. "Sure," she said cautiously. We stepped into the empty lounge, the one with the cracked leather armchairs and a fireplace no one used. She perched on the edge of a chair, still in her rehearsal dinner hoodie, looking more like my little sister than she had all weekend. I sat across from her, heart pounding so hard I thought she might hear it. "That necklace," I said quietly. "Do you know where it came from?" She blinked. "Mom said it was a family heirloom." "Why?" I swallowed. "Because it was mine." Silence. Not dramatic silence, just stunned, confused, fragile. "What?" she said finally. "Grandma gave it to me when I was 15, in her living room. She told me to keep it until I found someone who saw me fully. I kept it in my jewelry box for years. And then one day it was gone." She didn't speak, but her eyes dropped instinctively to the pendant. "I thought I lost it," I continued. "But I didn't. They took it." and gave it to you. Her hand lifted, fingers brushing the gold like she could somehow feel the truth now burned into it. Ava, she whispered. I didn't know. I swear. I thought, Mom said. She made it sound like it had always been for me. I know, I said. I'm not angry with you. Tears welled up in her eyes. Real ones, not the kind that show up in wedding photos. I would have never worn it if I knew. I I can give it back. Right now. No, I said gently. That's not why I came. Her head shot up, confused. I just needed you to know the truth, I said, because you're my sister. And I couldn't carry this weight alone anymore. She covered her mouth with one hand, a sob escaping before she could stop it. I feel awful. You shouldn't, I said. They lied to both of us. She nodded, wiping at her face with the sleeve of her hoodie. I hate that this happened. On this weekend of all weekends. Yeah, I said. Me too. She looked down at the necklace, then back at me. I want to fix this. Somehow. I didn't have an answer for that. Some things can't be fixed, but they can be seen, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like she finally saw me. 2 days after the wedding, I drove up to Willow Creek Cemetery with the windows down and the radio off. I needed quiet. Not the kind filled with polite avoidance or fake laughter, but the kind where you could hear your own thoughts creaking back to life. The sky was overcast, soft light filtering through the clouds like Grandma's old lace curtains. I parked under the sycamore tree and walked the familiar path to her headstone. Third row, second from the left. White marble, simple. Just like she wanted. I brought the old jewelry box with me, the one she gave me with the necklace. I sat cross-legged on the damp grass, the box in my lap, the weight of everything sitting heavy in my chest. Hey Grandma, I said, my voice cracking on the second word. I figured it was time we talked. The breeze picked up, rustling the trees. I imagined her smile, the one that always said, I already know what you're not saying. I opened the box. Empty, of course, just a velvet-lined hollow where something sacred used to be. They gave it to her, I said, at the wedding. As if it had always been hers. As if you didn't choose me. My throat tightened, but I kept going. I thought I lost it. I blamed myself for years. But they took it. Mom and Dad. They made it a prop in their perfect little performance. I looked up at the stone. Did you know they'd do that? That they'd erase me like that? Silence. But the wind moved again, slower this time. A hush. I don't care about the necklace, I lied. I mean, I do. But it's more than that. It was what it stood for. That someone saw me. That someone gave me something and meant it just for me. That I mattered. I ran my fingers over the edge of the box. I miss you. I miss the way you looked at me like I was already enough, not like I had to earn it. I set the box gently on the stone. Do you think I should fight for it? I asked, my voice barely more than a whisper. Or just let it go? A leaf fell from the tree, landing in the box. Small. Simple. Still beautiful. I sat there for a long time, not looking for signs, not praying for answers, just sitting in the stillness with the woman who once saw all of me and said, that's enough. And in that silence I decided, whether I took it back or not, I wasn't going to be erased. Dinner that Sunday was tense before the salad even hit the table. Mom insisted on hosting. Of course she did. She called it a simple family gathering, like it hadn't been orchestrated for damage control. The table was set with her finest china, as if porcelain could mend the cracks in our foundation. My sister and Ethan were back from their mini-moon, all smiles and matching tans. Dad poured wine like a man trying to avoid eye contact. And me? I showed up because I needed to see it through. No more hiding behind texts or polite silence. We sat in the same chairs we always had, like muscle memory. Dad at the head. Mom to his right. My sister next to her new husband. Me at the far end, across from the window. The seat reserved for the daughter who wouldn't cause a scene. But the tension? It was thick enough to slice with Mom's antique butter knife. So, she said brightly, unfolding her napkin. How was the drive back? Easy, my sister replied, glancing at me, a flicker of worry in her eyes. Mom smiled at her, then turned to me. Ava, you've been quiet. I've had a lot to think about. Dad cleared his throat. Let's all try to enjoy dinner. Oh, let's not pretend, I said, laying my fork down with more force than necessary. This isn't just dinner. This is a performance. Mom's eyes narrowed. Ava? No, I said, calmly but firmly. Let's just say it, calmly but firmly. Let's just say it. You gave my necklace to someone else, lied about it, called it tradition. And now you want to act like I should just let it go because we're eating roast chicken. The room went still. My sister reached for my hand under the table, but I didn't move. Dad finally spoke. It was for the family. For the memory of your grandmother. Funny, I said. Because Grandma gave it to me, not you, not the family. Me. I think you're overreacting, Mom said. And there it was. The sentence she'd weaponized since I was 12. I think you're minimizing, I said. Again. Ethan looked between us like he'd wandered into a minefield. My sister stayed quiet, respectfully, painfully quiet. I just want to understand, I said, voice tight. When did I stop being someone you considered? No one answered. The silence told me more than their words ever had. I looked down at my plate. The food was beautiful, steaming, perfectly seasoned, tasteless. And as I sat there, surrounded by the people who once defined the word home, I realized something important. I didn't need their permission to be angry, or to be right. That night, I stood in the bathroom staring at my reflection again. But this time, I didn't feel like a ghost. I felt like someone waking up after a long, slow drowning. Everything about the last few days played on a loop. The necklace, the speech, the lies, my sister's stunned face, my mother's calculated calm, Dad, always in the background, letting it happen, and me applauding the whole show like a good daughter. Not anymore. Not for peace, not for family, not for their comfort. I walked into my room, opened my closet, and pulled out the little memory box I hadn't touched in years. Inside were photographs. A few birthday cards, dried flowers from Grandma's funeral, and a folded piece of paper in my own handwriting from when I was 16. Things that belonged to me. I stared at it for a long time. The necklace had been number one. I used to think reclaiming it would fix something, that if I just had it back, I'd feel whole again. But this wasn't about jewelry. It never had been. It was about erasure. About how easily my place in the family could be overwritten, how casually I could be recast in the background of my own story, and how I had allowed it. I sat down at my desk, opened a blank notebook, and started a new list. Not of things I'd lost, but of what I was going to take back. My voice. My boundaries. My history. I wrote until my hand cramped. Then I opened my laptop and started gathering what I'd need. Photos, emails, copies of Grandma's handwriting. Every scrap of proof that the necklace wasn't just some heirloom pulled from a dusty drawer. It was a gift, a promise. Given with intention. Given with love. And that mattered. I wasn't doing this to punish them. I was doing it to reclaim myself. Because I deserved to take up space in this family. Because I'd spent years shrinking myself so they could shine. And I was done disappearing. The necklace may have ended up around someone else's neck. But the story? That was still mine. I didn't know what I was looking for until I found it. My bedroom back at my parents' house hadn't changed much since I moved out. Same dusty trophies on the shelf. Same faded posters from my high school art club. Same dresser with the slightly crooked middle drawer. The one that used to stick when I pulled it open too fast. That's where I started. The velvet box was gone, of course. But everything else was still there, including the drawer full of old notebooks and birthday cards. I sifted through them slowly, careful not to smudge the corners, until I found the envelope, cream-colored, sealed with a wax stamp I'd never opened. Grandma's handwriting on the front, "For you, Ava, when you're ready." I slid my finger beneath the flap and pulled out the photo tucked inside. It was from the summer I turned 15. We were in her backyard, standing under the magnolia tree. My hair was braided, and I had that awkward, just out of braces smile. She was holding the necklace up, fastening it around my neck while I looked down at it like it was some kind of treasure. Because it was. I flipped the photo over. Her handwriting again. July 6th. Ava, and the beginning of her always. Proof. Undeniable. I sat back on the floor and stared at it for a long time. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. From clarity. I dug deeper, pulling out my old journals. On the inside flap of one, I'd written, "Grandma gave me the necklace today. I'll wear it on my wedding day. It's mine." Even then, I knew how precious it was. And somewhere along the way, they decided it wasn't mine anymore. But I had the words, the photo, the truth. I gathered everything, scanned the photo with my phone, snapped pictures of the journal entry, even pulled up an old text I'd sent Brielle that same summer. "She gave me the necklace today." I cried. "I think it's the most important thing anyone's ever given me." It wasn't just memory anymore, it was evidence, tangible, irrefutable. And suddenly, I didn't feel like a forgotten daughter anymore. I felt like someone with a voice. And I was ready to use it. I didn't tell them I was coming. I showed up on a Thursday evening, just as the sun started dipping below the horizon, painting the sky in warm oranges that felt too beautiful for what I was about to do. My parents' porch lights were already on. The lawn perfectly trimmed, the walkway lined with those solar-powered lanterns Mom insisted made the house look inviting. I rang the doorbell. Mom opened the door with her usual practiced smile, until she saw my face. Then the edges of her expression flickered, but she stepped aside. "Ava," she said, voice tight. "We weren't expecting you." "I know," I replied. "But I'm not here for dinner or small talk. I'm here to tell the truth." She said nothing, just nodded slightly and closed the door behind me. Dad was already in the living room, glasses perched on the end of his nose, flipping through the newspaper like it was still 1997. He looked up, surprised, then cautiously pleased. "Hey, honey." I sat on the edge of the armchair. "I found the photo." The room stilled. "The one where Grandma's giving me the necklace," I said. "You remember? Under the magnolia tree, the summer I turned 15. You were both there." Mom took the picture. They didn't deny it, didn't even flinch. I pulled out my phone, opened the image, held it up. "This," I said, "is the truth. This necklace wasn't a family heirloom waiting for the next bride. It was mine. She gave it to me. She wrote it on the back. I wrote about it in my journal. I told Brielle. I have texts from that same day." Dad looked down. Mom stared straight ahead, her jaw set. "I'm not here to make a scene," I said, softer now. "I'm not even here to ask for it back. I just need you to understand what it felt like to watch you stand in front of all those people and act like I never mattered." Mom blinked. "I wasn't just hurt," I continued. "I felt erased. Like I was never the daughter who got that moment, like my memory didn't count." Dad rubbed his temple. "It wasn't meant to hurt you, Ava." "But it did," I said. "And not because of the necklace. Because of what it meant. Because of how easy it was for you to rewrite that part of my story like it never existed." For a moment, no one spoke. Then, quietly, my voice breaking, I added, "You made me feel invisible. And I've felt that way for a long time." The silence that followed wasn't defensive. It was heavy, regretful, and it was theirs to sit in. The silence stretched so long, I started to wonder if they'd say anything at all. Then Dad spoke. His voice was low, quieter than I'd ever heard it. "We thought your sister needed something to anchor her, something that would make her feel part of the legacy. She's always been the one who struggles to feel connected to family tradition." I blinked. "So you gave her mine?" He flinched. Mom finally looked at me, her face tight, not angry, not cold, but something else, something raw. "It wasn't supposed to be like this," she said. "You were always the strong one. The steady one. The one who didn't need ceremony." I felt the breath knock out of me. "I didn't need a ceremony," I said slowly. "I needed to be seen. I needed the things that were mine to stay mine, not passed off like they were community property." Mom opened her mouth, then closed it again. For once, she didn't have a ready retort. Dad leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "She came to us weeks before the wedding, said she wanted to wear something meaningful, something Grandma had worn. Your mother remembered the necklace." "She remembered," I said, bitterness creeping into my voice, "but forgot who it was given to." "We didn't forget," Mom said finally. "We just thought it made sense." "No," I said, the word slicing clean through the air. "You thought she needed it more, and that I'd be fine without it. That I wouldn't notice. Or that if I did, I'd stay quiet to keep the peace." Dad's eyes closed, like the weight of it had finally landed. "We were wrong," he said. "And I'm sorry, Ava." Those words, they landed with more force than I expected. Because they were real. He meant them. And then, almost reluctantly, Mom nodded too. "I am too," she said. "It wasn't fair. To you. To what Grandma gave you." It wasn't enough, but it was something. Something I hadn't heard in a long, long time. They didn't offer it right away. No dramatic reveal. No teary, "We kept it safe just in case." The necklace was still with my sister, still hanging from a chain that, at least for now, she hadn't taken off. But something shifted after that night. The next morning, I got a text from Mom. "I boxed up a few things from the old dresser. Thought you might want them. Stop by when you're ready." When I arrived, the box was already on the table. A small one, carefully taped, with my name written in neat handwriting I hadn't seen on a gift tag since I was a teenager. Inside were old photos. A birthday card from Grandma I thought I'd lost. A pressed magnolia flower between two pieces of tissue paper. And at the very bottom, a navy velvet pouch I didn't recognize. My fingers hesitated. I opened it slowly. Inside was a different necklace. Not Grandma's, but one I hadn't seen in years. An antique gold locket that had belonged to her mother. A photo of Grandma as a little girl tucked inside, faded but clear. There was a note folded beneath it. "Ava, this one was kept for you. We failed to protect what was already yours. We can't undo that. But we want you to have something that carries her with you. Not as a replacement, but as a truth. We see you, Mom and Dad." I didn't cry right away, I just sat at the table. Fingers curled around the locket and let myself feel the weight of it. The apology wasn't perfect, the gesture didn't erase the hurt, but it mattered. It was a beginning. Later that week, my sister called, no pressure in her voice. Just a simple, "Hey, can I see you?" She brought the necklace in a small satin bag and placed it gently in my hands. "I'm not giving this back because I feel guilty," she said. "I'm giving it back because I understand now." I looked at her. "You don't have to." "Yes," she interrupted, "I do." And this time, when I held it, I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Home. Not the place, not the family, the part of me that had gone quiet. It stirred again. We sat on the back porch like we used to when we were kids, barefoot, legs pulled up to our chests, the late summer air thick with the smell of jasmine and cut grass. My sister held a mug of tea between her palms, still in her worn honeymoon sweatshirt. I had the necklace sitting beside me on the wood railing, the pendant catching the porch light in lazy flickers. Neither of us spoke for a long time. She was the one who finally broke the silence. "I kept wondering why I felt off the whole day," she said, staring out into the dark yard. "I thought it was nerves. Or the attention. But it wasn't." I didn't say anything. "It was this," she said, nudging the necklace slightly with her finger. "It was wearing something that didn't belong to me. I didn't know. But I think part of me felt it anyway." "I know you didn't do it on purpose," I said softly. "I never blamed you." She turned to look at me, her eyes shiny in the porch light. "But I still wore it. And when you told me, I didn't take it off right away. I didn't know what to do." "You didn't have to do anything that second." "I wanted to." We sat with that for a while, the old wooden swing creaking just slightly in the breeze. "I thought giving it back would feel like losing something," she admitted. "But it didn't. It felt right, like setting something back where it always belonged." I nodded. "Thank you." She reached into her hoodie pocket and pulled out a small box, wrapped in plain white paper, a purple ribbon tied tight. "What's this?" She shrugged. "A peace offering. Or maybe a sister offering. I don't know." I opened it slowly. Inside was a silver bracelet, delicate, simple. Engraved on the inside, "You were always seen." My throat caught. "I don't deserve your forgiveness," she said, voice trembling. "You're not asking for it," I replied. "You're giving me the truth. That's enough." We sat there until the bugs started biting and the stars blinked alive above us. No more defenses. No more pretending. Just two sisters who had been pulled apart by other people's choices, finally stepping back into each other's light. The necklace would stay with me. But what mattered more? We would too. I sat alone the next morning with the necklace draped across my palms, the morning light catching on its edges like tiny flashes of memory. It didn't feel like it used to. It felt heavier now, not with pain, but with meaning. Layers of it. I ran my thumb over the engraving on the back. Always. The same word that once felt like a promise now felt like a quiet truth. One I had to learn the hard way. I placed the necklace back in its original box, the velvet inside still intact, still holding its shape like it had been waiting all this time, and set it on the windowsill. It wasn't going back in a drawer. It wasn't hiding again. I glanced at the old photo of Grandma beside it, the one where she's laughing in mid-motion, her eyes squinting against the sun like she's trying to memorize the moment. I get it now, I whispered. Because it was never just about love, or weddings, or even the necklace itself. It was about knowing who you are, even when the people closest to you try to rewrite the narrative. It was about claiming your space, not loudly, not violently, but clearly. It was about choosing to carry the parts of yourself that others tried to forget. I didn't need them to hand me back what they'd taken anymore. I had taken me back. I closed my eyes and, for the first time in weeks, felt stillness, not numbness, not anger, just peace. Grandma, wherever she was, would understand. She always had, and maybe that's what always meant all along. The following Saturday, I walked into the farmer's market alone, coffee in one hand, the necklace resting just beneath my collarbone. No fanfare, no speech, no one knew but me, and that was enough. I browsed the flower stalls, picked out sunflowers like Grandma used to, and smiled at the woman arranging them into paper bundles. The kind of smile that reaches your eyes when you're no longer pretending. Later, I stopped by the bookstore. Picked up a new journal. The old one. The one that had once held lists of things I thought proved my worth, was tucked away now. Not discarded, just finished. I didn't need a record of what I'd lost anymore. I needed space for what I was building. My phone buzzed in my bag. A message from my sister. Dinner next week? Just us? I smiled, typed back, absolutely. Because we were still stitching things back together, thread by thread, not perfectly, not quickly. But honestly, that mattered more. I passed a mirror in the shop window and caught my reflection. Same eyes, same hair, same quiet kind of strength I'd spent so long shrinking. But now? Now I stood a little taller. Not because I had something to prove, but because I no longer needed to disappear to make others comfortable. I wore the necklace that day, not as a trophy, not as a statement, but as a reminder. I am mine. Always.